Hi, this is John from the Garmin Marine team. Today we wanted to show you the basics of installing a Garmin radar, both a domed radar and an open array. Radar allows you to see other boats or hazards by directing a very short burst of microwave energy along the surface of the water and reading any reflections that are returned from nearby objects. One big benefit of radar is that it can see in difficult conditions like rainstorms or even at night when visibility is limited. As with all marine electronics, it's critical to get the radar installed properly in order to get the best performance. We recommend that you work with a Garmin authorized marine installer if you have any questions or concerns about installing a radar on your boat. Go to Garmin's website and click on Authorized Dealers to find a marine installer in your area. If you decide to undertake the installation yourself, this video will help guide you through the necessary steps. Now, before we start, there's a few important things to consider regarding the placement of the radar itself. The ideal location is directly above the center line of the boat and as high as practical to get the maximum range for your radar. The radar will give you the best performance when it's parallel to the waterline. If you're on a power boat that runs with the bow up a few degrees, you may want to consider a wedge or angled mount. If you're on a sailboat, you may want to consider a self-leveling mount that will compensate for the boat's heel. You'll want to avoid mounting the radar on the same level as any smokestacks, spreaders, or other antennas. The location you choose must be able to support the weight of the radar dome or the open array, and very importantly, you want to mount the radar so that it's out of the range of any of the boat's occupants. The radar beam will exit the antenna in a 25-degree vertical beam, 12.5 degrees above parallel and 12.5 degrees below, so make sure to mount the antenna high enough to avoid prolonged exposure, especially to your eyes. And finally, make sure you have good access to run your wires and install the mounting bolts. Once you've determined the best mounting location, use the included template to mark and drill the mounting holes for the dome or the pedestal. Make sure the holes line up fore and aft so that you align the radar with the bow of the boat. If you're going to use a pre-drilled radar mount or tower to improve the radar's performance, make sure to get a mount that's compatible with the Garmin bolt pattern. While you still have the drill in your hand, drill an 1.25 inch hole to run your power and network cables to the radar if more access is necessary. With the radar domes, you can route the cables through any of these channels and down through this hole. With the open array, you can run the cables out of the bottom of the pedestal and through that hole you've drilled. Now here's the fun part, snaking the power and network cables down from your lofty perch through the boat and to their final locations. Garmin has tried to make this as painless as possible by separating the power and the network cables. There's a lot more options for running 2 smaller cables down through the boat than 1 large. Also, if you look close, you can see that we have removed the collars on all of the cables. This further reduces their size and makes them easier to run through the boat. Now, we don't recommend cutting the power or network cables if you can possibly avoid it. But if you absolutely have to cut the cable, Garmin does provide a field replaceable network connection with all of our radars. Cut off one end of the radar cable and put it in your pocket. You'll use it later. Now, thread the cut end down into the boat. You'll want to leave the exposed end intact. Once you've completed the run for your network cable, you can attach a new network plug by following the included instructions. Pull that old plug out of your pocket and use it to determine the proper pinout for your new plug. Once your new connection is attached, go ahead and plug into any of the open MFD network ports or into your port expander. Now, while we're talking about network plugs, let me show you this cool little adapter that may save you some time with your installation or during a winterization. This is a bulkhead connection that allows you to plug one network cable in this side and another into this side. You can mount this fitting at the base of a sailboat mast. This allows you to run one network cable up the mast and another network cable to your Garmin display. When you have to step the mast, simply unplug the network cable. When you re-step the mast, simply plug it back in. Same goes for a large powerboat installation with a tuna tower or an upper helm station where you want a quick disconnect for the radar network cable. Okay, so your network cable is now run. Let's get some power to this radar. You've already run the power cable down from your antenna into the boat. With the domed radars, simply connect the black power lead to an appropriate ground connection and the red wire to an appropriate power supply. The domes can operate on 12 or 24 volt systems. Make sure to check the owner's manuals for current draw and other specs. We recommend you leave the inline fuse intact. The open arrays, however, all include this voltage converter. This steps the incoming voltage up to allow for the increased electrical demands of these radars. You can power the voltage converter with 12, 24, or up to a max of 40 volt systems. So connect the power wire from the open array pedestal to the power converter, and connect the power converter to the appropriate positive and negative power leads on your boat. Now, let's go back up top and finish this installation. So here we are back with the radar scanner. All the wires are run, so let's install the radar and make our final terminations. With the radar domes, we include this cable hold-down plate to secure the wires underneath the dome. Run your power and network cables under this plate and secure it with the included hardware. Now apply this included anti-seize compound to the mounting studs and thread them into the radar base. They should stick out no more than 2 inches and will accommodate a mounting surface from 3/16 to 1 3/16 inches in thickness. If your mounting surface is thicker than this, you're going to have to find longer mounting studs locally. With the open arrays, slide these seals onto the pedestals to improve water integrity below. And speaking of water integrity, now's the time to run a bead of marine-grade sealant around all the mounting holes and the wire access holes. With the dome, look at the bottom of the radar to make your connections for the power and network cables to their appropriate plugs and secure them. You should also see a molded-in sign saying front with a nice big arrow. Point this at the bow and slide the radar dome down into the mounting holes. Now, frankly, it doesn't really matter which way the dome is oriented, as you can enter an electronic offset later on to correct for this. But whenever possible, put the front of the dome towards the bow so you don't have to enter this correction. With the open array, the standard mounting is to have the curved surface towards the bow and the access plate towards the stern. Again, if for some reason you have to mount it the other way around, you can enter a 180-degree offset. Remove this access plate on the open array pedestals. Make your connections for the power and the network connection, and then secure the access plate. Now, remove this protective cover from the pedestal waveguide, align the waveguide with the antenna, and attach your open array antenna to the pedestal using the included hardware. All right, now that the radar is mounted, check the owner's manual for torque specs on your model and secure it to the mounting surface using the supplied hardware. With that, your radar installation is complete. Turn on your Garmin radar and you should see a new radar icon on your screen. This lets you know that the display is seeing the radar and it's communicating. If you don't see this icon, go back and check your connections or your power supply. If you installed an open array antenna, it will ask you what size antenna you installed, 4 foot or 6 foot. If it's a dome, we can determine the antenna size automatically. While we're here, now is the perfect time to update the software for your Garmin system. Go to Garmin's website to download the latest free software onto a standard SD data card and drop this card into the card slot in your display. To make your life easier, we include the latest software for your Garmin display and the radar in the same file. In fact, we include the latest software for all your Garmin units in that file, so it'll update all the Garmin equipment that's attached to the display. Easy, huh? Once the software update is done, we can spin up the radar. From the home screen, touch Radar, and then let's choose Harbor. The radar will give you a message to let you know it's warming up. Once it's ready to go, select Transmit, and it'll start rotating and transmitting, and you should start to see all the radar returns around your boat. Now, if you're in a marina or a boatyard with a million boats and metal sheds around you, the radar screen will just be covered with radar targets. We suggest you get out into some less crowded water before you make any changes to the radar. One thing to check is the orientation of the radar. If you had to install the radar backwards, you can enter that 180-degree offset as we mentioned. If you determine that the mounting is off just a few degrees, you can correct that as well by putting in a positive or a negative offset depending on your installation. Your radar should now be receiving data and giving you a great new view of the world around you. Please don't wait until you need the radar to turn it on for the first time. Make sure you use your radar often to get familiar with the look and the feel of the returns. Radar can give you a great new set of eyes on the world, but only if you know how to interpret what you see on the radar screen. Check out our video on radar basics if you would like some help learning more about your radar. As always, if you have any questions about your marine radar or any Garmin products, go to garmin.com/marine or ask any one of our authorized installing dealers. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the water.